Hey, it's Sarah with House Copper, and today we are getting started on a brand new build, which will be custom made and kind of guessed on based on old drawings and prototypes that I have only seen photos of. But we are going to be making Syllabubs, Syllabub Makers to make Syllabub, I guess I should say. And it's an old traditional Victorian meal that came in both the London and the Devonshire Syllabub pudding recipes. Those are the only ones I've been able to find anyway, which were a dessert consisting mostly of heavy cream and wine. And so it's a long cylinder with a cover with a hole that has like a plunger. So we have to make, the body as well as the plunger. And I am working in collaboration with Anne of Anne of All Trades, who is doing the handle for this, since usually it was made out of wood. And what this is basically a whipped dessert. You whip the wine and the heavy cream together, and then you would always add nutmeg or cinnamon, depending on which recipe, or like some sort of whipped cream on top if it's the Devonshire kind. And the reason you would add the spices, funny enough, Bob explained this to me, is because back in the day when they were making syllabubs, the meat and the dairy products of the time were not refrigerated properly, and they usually were bad by the time you got to eating them, or oftentimes by the time you got to eating them, so they smelled horrible. And the nutmeg and the cinnamon were liberally used to hide the stench of the rotten or sour food you were consuming. Delicious. But that being said, I think we should bring back the Syllabub, and we should bring it back using refrigerated cream. And that means that we need to actually start having Syllabub makers available for us. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to do it out of copper, just because I think that copper reacts really well to the cream and the enzymes in the cream when you're whipping it, just like with egg whites and things like that. And we're going to start out with some copper cutting, and we're going to be kind of making it up from there. And here's fingers crossed that we can make it work. Let's go. We're going to start out with a piece of copper sheet. And I'm going to be selling these in wood boxes. So I'm trying to fit the wood boxes, the size diameter to that, as well as kind of guessing based on images of Syllabub makers. Since again, I have not actually seen or held one, so I'm just going off of photographs of antiques that I have been able to find and glean. So I'm actually going to go with a measurement of about 10 inches high for the body, and then what did I say? 4 inches in diameter for the actual diameter of the thing. So to do a pattern in a cylinder like that, and I've done many videos on how to make a cylinder, but that means 10 inches high for one part, and then 4 times pi plus seam work. I have to make a seam allowance. So we're gonna do 10 by 13 inches for the body blank. Now everybody's stomp shears is different. Ideally you have something that can cut something really big. But I always check, just especially with longer pieces like this, so that both sides are on par. Because if you're off even by like a quarter of an inch, or even sometimes a 16th, like it bites, and it shows. It looks wobbly. Rechecking my measurements and then wasting material, which is not a horrible thing, but with the cost of copper these days, it's best not to waste. Okay, so there's our body. Now we're gonna get going on, probably forming the bodies. And this is gonna be a multi-day build just because it's gonna take a long time to figure out the measurements. But the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna notch it so that it can take a seam. We only need to do a lap seam for something like this, and then we can roll it. Okay, before we use the roller, we actually have to bend over the sides on this piece. As you can see, I've notched it for a lap seam. So we're gonna scooch over to the bar folder. And I'm gonna put this to the outside because if you put seams to the inside, food gets stuck in them easier. So I always try and do it to the outside. Plus it should allow for a slightly tighter fit of the lid. So I'm gonna pick the shiniest side to the outside. And make sure it's set. There we go. So now everything is bent over so that you don't have a sharp edge when you're washing or touching this. Not that you should be drinking out of it. I suppose you could, but I also like to kind of give my rollers a little bit of a break by slightly hammering this down. Because I'm working with copper and it's soft, I use a rubber mallet whenever I can. So here you go, and just gently tap it down, just so it doesn't catch on the roller as bad. The trick with this design is because the cover goes over the top of the outside as opposed to into the inside with a rim band. We get to kind of play around with the design a little bit. And it's also giving me an opportunity to, this moves, I forget all the time. Gives me an opportunity to play with the design as well myself. All right, we're gonna back this way off since I was doing something really tight before. Try and make sure it's even. You can always use like a drill bit to just see if it's even. I just kind of use my fingers and go by feel. This side feels a little tighter. Good. All right. Yeah, I think. Yeah, let's put it to the outside. Okay. Oh my, really not tight. We're just gonna do a tad. You don't wanna start out so tight that you can't do it, but okay. Went a tad too far. That's all right. So now we have the Syllabub cylinder, which looks about right. Now we have to solder the inside seam that way into a lap seam, and then we can move to adjusting and fitting our base.